Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 7 p.m. and time for the regularly scheduled Beloit City Council meeting at 100 State Street, Beloit, Wisconsin. Today is Monday, September 17th, 2012. First item on the agenda is call to order and roll call.
Roll call shows all councilors present.
Number 2, Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 is the special orders of the day and announcements. Item A is a presentation of the law enforcement accreditation to the Beloit Police Department. Mr. Vice President.
Be it hereby known that the Beloit, Wisconsin Police Department, having fully demonstrated its voluntary commitment to law enforcement excellence by living up to a body of standards deemed essential to the protection of the life, health, and safety and rights of the citizens it serves, and having exemplified the best professional practices in the conduct of its responsibilities for over 15 years, is hereby, upon the recommendation of the members of the Commission, awarded this Certificate of Advanced Meritorious Accreditation, effective on the first day of August 2012, and is recognized as an accredited law enforcement agency for a period of 3 years. This is the 7th award for the City of Beloit. Congratulations to the department for this award, and we have a second award which represents the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Accreditation Group, which we also received accreditation for effective the 19th day of March 2012, and recognized as a Wisconsin accredited law enforcement agency also for a period of 3 years. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. On behalf of all the members of the police department, we appreciate the support of the council and the community that allows us to attempt to get these awards. Your continued efforts with our department and our support is appreciated. Thank you again.
All right, item number 4 is public hearings. Item number A.
Resolution authorizing an exception to the Architectural Review and Landscape Code for the property located at 615 Broad Street. The Plan Commission recommended approval, 7-0.
Madam Director.
The applicant, Roger Bryden, owns the subject property, which is leased to the owner of the 615 Club. The owner is currently constructing a major building addition, which does activate the landscape code. They are seeking a waiver of most of the requirements. The open green space requirement only applies to the interior side and rear property lines where at least 5 feet of grass must be provided. There's a landscape strip requirement which applies to areas between a parking lot and a public street where trees and shrubs must be planted in an amount equal to 10 landscape units per foot of street frontage. And they are meeting some of the landscape strip requirement between the eastern portion of the parking lot and Broad Street, but they're seeking an exception to the remainder part of the landscape strip. And the interior planting island requirements applies to parking lots with more than 25 stalls, where islands with a shade tree and shrubs must be provided in an amount equal to 6% of the parking lot area. They essentially, the building is under construction. What we did give them is the ability to start the project, but that they couldn't do any of the site work until this exception was processed. Planning staff did recommend approval, and the Plan Commission also reviewed this item on September 5th and voted unanimously 7-0 to recommend approval, subject to the conditions which are listed in the resolution, which is in your packet, which is that the applicant shall install all of the landscaping that is shown on the landscape plan that was submitted. That is included in your packet and outlines what would have been required and what they are providing. And then any major changes to the exception shall be approved by Plan Commission and Council by amending this exception to the Architecture Review and Landscape Code, and the Director of Planning and Building Services may approve minor changes administratively.
Thank you. I'm opening the public hearing for item 4A, resolution authorizing exception architectural review and landscape code for the property located at 615 Broad Street. Does anybody wish to come forward and speak on this matter? Second call for anyone to come forward and speak on item 4A. Third and final call for anyone to come forward and speak on item 4A. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on item 4A and look for a motion.
Second.
Motion by Lubke, second by Levy. Any comments or questions? I have only one minor thing to note is that the 615 Club is one of the oldest establishments in Beloit and just a great gem to our downtown. And I'm thrilled that they're able to not only survive but expand. So that's all I have to say on it. Oh, Jim, did you want to say?
Yes, President. I would note that the proprietor of 615, Mr. Hatley, is here, and I can't but hark back to the hard-fought election between yourself and Mr. Hatley, where by one vote you won the right to be on this council, and he did not. And he's indicated that was the best one vote that was ever cast, I think. Thank you.
I've thought of that myself. Oh, okay. Councilor DeForest.
Yeah, just if I could focus us back to the merits of of what we're looking at here. I did have the opportunity to go out and to survey the lot and eyeball it myself and saw that the accommodations, they were reasonable, and the efforts that they were making to compromise to increase landscaping in the front of the restaurant, and it's going to be a beautiful building. It's going to add to the look and increase the aesthetics of that block. So I was very pleased and satisfied with the changes that were suggested. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, let's go ahead and move to the merits. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item passes 7-0. Item 5, citizens' participation. We've reached the point in the agenda where citizens speak to the council about issues that are coming before us or may come before us in the future. Council members may not act on any requests that are not specifically on the agenda, may refer a speaker to staff for assistance. This is where I kind of discuss the kinds of limitations that we're looking at today, because we know that there's a lot of emotions involved in some of the things that are before us. So we normally we're going to ask people to stay with 3 minutes or less. Also, we need people to be quiet and respectful during other people's presentations. We have to stay away from clapping and cheering or shouting out at things that you may hear that you don't like or do like. In any case, proper decorum is absolutely required for us to maintain the dignity of our processes and the democratic process. So having been said, we'll open up the citizens' participation. I do have just 3 sheets so far tonight, and the first one is for Kim Mork. Please state your name and address.
Kim Mork. Our founding fathers intended to establish a nation where Americans would be free to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in an environment where freedom was maximized and government interference was minimized. Unfortunately, our nation has turned away from those principles and is now running 180 degrees in the other direction. For some reason, our political system tends to attract controlling people that want to micromanage our lives and make most of our decisions for us. These controllers are actually convinced that freedom and liberty are dangerous and that there should be a rule or a regulation for just about everything. This is not just happening on the federal level either. The truth is that many controllers are often the worst on the local level. When you add up all the red tape on all levels of government, we literally have millions of laws, rules, and regulations in America today. All this red tape is suffocating our businesses, destroying our liberties and our freedoms, and slowly sucking the life out of all of us. If we ever want to have any hope of restoring America to what it once was, then we have to start doing something about this horrific mountain of red tape. In America today, there is very little that you can actually do without getting some sort of a license or a permit first. It doesn't have to be this way. You council members at any given moment can choose to do the right thing. Stop adding restrictions and regulations to our lives and start representing the people and protecting our freedoms. That was what our representative republic was established for, not to decide what constitutes our quality of life. We as individuals are responsible for our own quality of life. All of these restrictions, fees, fines, and regulations diminish our quality of life
3 minutes.
by limiting our freedoms.
Thank you. Next is Kathy Flanagan.
Hi. I've been a resident of Beloit for 32 years, along with my husband and 2 sons, and we love living in Beloit, and we love all of the wonderful changes that are happening here, and hope that, that's all going to be continuing. I feel badly hearing some communications that we've received is that this issue is becoming an us versus them kind of a thing. And I hope that you, as our city councilors, will be voting on what is best for the whole community, and that people realizing that it isn't anything personal as far as the differences in the opinions here. I, as a health professional, am especially concerned with the information from the health department. They stated that their biggest concern is with infestation of rats and rodents. And I know a lot of people are going to be very clean and conscientious about this, but there will be others who are not, and that is certainly a concern. Rats and rodents do not pay any attention to fences around yards, so they will be spilling over into other people's yards also. The other thing is flies and disease. If feces are not gotten rid of, cleaned up on a regular basis, people are not monitoring very closely, there is the chance of the spread of 2 really nasty infections, Salmonella, which we've all heard of, and Campylobacter. And these are diseases which are especially hard on the very young and also the elderly. I have young grandchildren, and I'm rapidly getting elderly. So, these are important concerns, and I think we need to respect our health department. Closely monitoring these things is something that was recommended, and I asked myself, who's going to monitor them? We don't have a department for this in Beloit. Our resources are being stressed. I don't have to tell you about the cuts that you've had to make that have been very painful for all of you and for all of us. There have already been complaints, 11 complaints per Julie Christensen, Community Development Director, and this isn't even an ordinance yet. When people, maybe not permit holders, but others hear, oh, you can have chickens in Beloit, they may start raising chickens in their backyard, and who is going to monitor all this? I want to finish with to please consider the negative impact on all the citizens in Beloit versus the interests of a few who could choose other ways to, according to their goals, to save money, decrease fossil fuels, improve food safety, their own health. I understand these things, but I feel that they can be taken care of by things that I and my own family do, and many of you do already. Buying organic, buying fresh foods, plant a garden, as many of us do, and raise these chickens outside of the city. If chickens are within, the close boundaries, I wanted to add, there's more of a chance of the spread of disease when you have close proximity. That, to me, also is why they belong out in the country. Thank you.
Next, I have Jason Vincent.
Good evening, members of the council. Jason Vincent, 3537 Eagles Ridge Drive here in Beloit. I just wanted to say tonight that I've seen something kind of beautiful over the course of the past 8 months. I watched from a fair distance, actually, for most of that time, a group of citizens who came before you with a desire in their hearts to have an ordinance passed to allow backyard chickens here in the city limits of Beloit. And I saw a process play out that was really encouraging to me, especially in times like now when we do see so much decisiveness at the national level when we look at our political pictures and our political parties. And up until about 2 weeks ago, it was a very encouraging thing to watch. And it wasn't just encouraging because I'm pro-chicken and you voted 5-2 to lay over that reading to tonight. It was because I really felt like the voice of the people was listened to. There was a coordination between the council and those people, and that everything was done very openly, honestly, above water, very transparently, with every opportunity for anybody on either side of the issue to speak and to be heard and to be a part of the process. All the way up to tonight and the last speaker that obviously had a different take on this than I did, and I appreciate that speaker's opinion. It is to my knowledge that you have all been contacted by two organizations that have influence in this city. I will speak of those specifically as the Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation as well as the Chamber of Commerce. If any individuals from either of those organizations have reached you on an individual basis to state their concerns, I encourage you to please take those concerns to heart, because as individuals, they certainly have the right to present that to you. But it is my opinion, as organizations, at the point when they crossed the line and decided to make this an organizational stance, that they overstepped their bounds. And I just implore you to please take that into consideration when you place the vote tonight and think back to the process that led up to the vote 2 weeks ago, as opposed to the events of the past few days. Thank you.
Next would be Mary Beth Miller. Please approach and state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Mary Beth Miller, and I live at 2481 Oxford Lane. And I would just like to briefly thank this council for being courageous earlier this month in supporting a backyard chicken ordinance by a vote of 5-2 after hearing the advocate's well-prepared case. I've mostly observed this process from the sidelines until recently, but I can tell that your consideration was exhaustive and probably exhausting. I appreciate that some of you took a lot of flack after the last vote. Your jobs must be especially trying when you have to explain your votes to those who didn't tune in during a debate process or only heard the perspective of one side of an issue. That's why I'm here to express my gratitude to the 5 councilors who voted to support the ordinance and express my hope that you'll do so again tonight. I'd also like to thank the dissenting councilors for expressing their pragmatic arguments concisely and with civility. I hope you will cede gracefully to the majority and help make Beloit's first 120 chicken ambassadors a success in 2013. I've enjoyed being part of this process of seeing a community shape itself based on citizen input, and so I'll thank you a final time for your tireless and often thankless part in that process on not just this, but so many issues in this city.
Thank you. And the next one is Steve Benton.
Good evening. I'm not going to repeat everything that Kathy Flanagan already said, but I'm in agreement with her. I did speak with everyone prior to this meeting, but I just wanted to come and mention the 2 bullet points that I think are important to consider when you look at this particular vote. First of all, although I did find at least one definition in the dictionary that chickens are not livestock, most of the other ones indicated that they are. And to me, when you start considering where livestock is going to be kept, it seems to me that the rural area, farms, ranches, whatever, would be the proper place for that, not in the city. As a matter of fact, that's the way the dictionary, the ones that I am speaking of, refer to it. It says livestock are meant to be kept on farms or ranches, not in urban areas. If for some reason you go ahead with the vote that you seem to be ready to do, the 5-2 or whatever, I would urge you to at least accept one change in the ordinance, or maybe an addition it would be considered, and that would be to include a clause that all neighbors that have abutting properties to any particular property that is hosting livestock, that they must sign a waiver indicating their approval of said livestock. If new neighbors move in, the livestock would be allowed under the grandfather clause, but I would also urge that realtors make mention of the fact that there's livestock in a particular neighborhood when they're showing people homes, because I don't think that a lot of urban dwellers really want chickens in their backyard or anywhere near them. So just to reiterate, the city staff voted opposed to this. The Plan Commission voted 4-1 against it, and I hope that you consider these comments along with Kathy's and anybody else who speaks in opposition to this.
All right, those are all of the sheets I have so far. Does anybody else wish to speak in this under citizens' participation? Please approach the podium and state your name and address.
Good evening. Bill Conover, 1014 Emerson Street, Beloit. I've been asked by the Beloit Backyard Chickens folks to sort of lead off with an introduction. I believe there will be some others who will would like to follow me. So the concerns that opposing residents and the groups mentioned recently have raised are nothing new. The group, the Backyard Chickens folks know they're not new, and of course you all know they're not new as well, because they were first heard 8 months ago. This group has tirelessly worked with city staff, city council, and among themselves with other citizens to sufficiently respond to and dismiss these concerns in a collegial process through which they have produced ample evidence from other cities and friendly amendments to the ordinance itself to get us to the point that we're at today. Now, why these organizations, particularly and individuals, did not express these concerns earlier in any of the many public workshops and hearings when we could have discussed them in a collegial dialogue, we don't know. But what we do know is that at each of those workshops and the public hearing 2 weeks ago, this group spent at least a half hour debunking the assumptions with which those arguments were made. So the group is not planning to present a 30-minute rebuttal again tonight, but since it does appear that many of these orgs still were not present at those hearings when they're first made, and since we know that the Chamber and the Economic Development Group wield a sizable amount of political capital, the group has concluded that they are forced to do so. So sorry, councilors, we know this is your 4th time hearing this, but we don't want those in opposition to walk away feeling like their voices have not been heard, acknowledged, and respected.
We are, however, going to limit ourselves to 10 minutes for everyone's sakes. The benefits of chickens are, 1, children's education, in terms of learning about animal care and responsibility, their food system, and life's basic processes. 2, improved health, as home-raised eggs are healthier than store-bought ones. Personal well-being, as many people gain a sense of pride, companionship, and satisfaction from raising pets. 4, chickens help homeowners become better environmental stewards by providing them with non-synthetic fertilizer, reducing food waste, and reducing their dependence on factory farming and all fossil fuels and antibiotic resistance that come with it.
And as you hand off the next person, I would like for them to follow the normal format of going ahead and saying who they are and giving their address.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tari Rudolph, and I live at 2114 Liberty Avenue. And I'd like to start with discussing unwanted predators, pests, and rodents. Predators and rodents are already living in urban areas. Wild bird feeders, pet food, gardens, fish ponds, bird baths, and the trash that's waiting to be collected all attract raccoons, foxes, rodents, and flies. Chicken pens are going to be required to be designed in such a way as to keep predators away, and if they can't get in after a few weeks, they won't come back. And if for whatever reason a person does end up with a problem, she or he can always buy one of a variety of traps available at Menards. In response to the concerns about potential illnesses, according to biology professor and emerging infectious diseases and public health specialist Marion Fass, and I'm going to paraphrase for the sake of time, the risk of H1N1 from chickens is negligible, and salmonella is only a concern if people don't use proper hygiene. Backyard chickens will not endanger larger flocks and are probably less likely to be hosts of disease than the ducks and geese on the river, and overall they will be good for the community. 2, according to Ron Keene, a poultry specialist in animal sciences at UW-Madison, and again I'm going to paraphrase for time, only rarely will contact with fecal matter lead to infection, nothing a good hand washing with soap can't prevent. The specific subtypes of influenza virus that affect humans have not been found in poultry in the U.S. for many years, and the overall health risks are very low when poultry is kept in a healthy and clean environment. In response to concerns about odors and noise, Ron Keene writes that chickens raised in urban backyards aren't necessarily any noisier or smellier than dogs. Most chicken odor is associated with ammonia produced in poorly ventilated and moist coops. The solution is to properly ventilate the housing area, which will keep the bedding dry. Patricia Foreman, author of several books on chickens, says that 4 hens combined will produce only 1/3 of the poop that a single 40-pound dog will produce in one day.
3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Bass. I live at 1149 Eaton Avenue, and I am here pro-chicken partly because of my daughter, who I would love to be able to have her grow up with these. So in response to concern about increased fire risk associated with coops, according to farming author Terry Bridge and the leader of Chicago's Backyard Chicken Network, chickens don't need heat during the winter, so we've offered to amend the ordinance to prohibit electricity running to the coops. In response to concerns raised by the Property Managers Association, 1, passing this ordinance means specifically requiring the property owner's notarized signature on any permit application. Rejecting this ordinance could force tenants already illegally raising chickens to hide their activities more, rather than bring them out into the open where they can be scrutinized and improved upon. 3, volunteer and staff systems will be in place to deal with the unlikely case of abandoned chickens. 4, if our system is such that landlords will be responsible for paying fines that result from tenants' chicken keeping, then we fully support an amendment to charge the fine to the tenant instead. 5, we suggest that landlords factor any costs into the security deposits, just as they do with other potential damages. And in response to concern about the negative impact on Beloit's image and property values, neither we nor the city staff have found any comprehensive, statistically significant study that proves that backyard chickens have negative effects on property values. We've talked to many people for whom backyard chickens would make Beloit a more appealing place to live. We are asking to keep chickens tucked away behind the house in the backyard, not next to the interstate or Riverside Park. There are too many other wonderful things that the city is doing that we will be known for first when we become known as the chicken town. And 94 of the 100 largest cities in the U.S. allow chickens. Numerous other municipalities in Wisconsin, including half of its eco-municipalities, allow chickens too. And 8 2012 All-America City Award winners allowed chickens. Have any of them become known as chicken towns? Thank you.
Please approach the podium and state your name and address.
Hi, good evening. My name's Tara Lamb, and I live at 857 Bluff Street here in Beloit. And I'm going to respond to the concerns about loose or abandoned chickens and inhumane treatment. According to Professor Bartling's survey of 20 municipalities with chicken ordinances, 17 indicated that chickens getting loose has not been a problem. The remaining 3 reported isolated incidents of chickens getting loose. Few people will have chickens in comparison to dogs and cats in the city. Chickens are required to be in contained areas at all times, and farmers will all tell you that chickens rarely go far from home. Chickens are very different from stray cats and dogs, which can be aggressive, tear into trash bags, and worst of all, mate with other stray dogs and cats. In the case of somebody truly abandoning their chickens, the city could contract with farms who have offered to discuss a binding contract, or B, the city contracts with Dane County Humane Society, and in either case, the city first asks one of the many volunteers here to assist in any way they can. You see, there's many of them over here, including myself, that would be happy to do that. In order to give staff time to make sure that animal control and their logical procedures are in place, we've amended the ordinance for a January 1st start date. In response to the concerns about adequate staffing levels, we've amended the ordinance to limit the number of permits issued to 30 in the first year. This will give staff time to monitor the implementation of the ordinance for a limited number of households. Our research of other cities shows that violations and resulting enforcement will be minimal. It's impossible to know ahead of time the exact number of permits that will be sought or the number of compliance issues that will have to be dealt with, but all evidence suggests there will be few. Professor Bartley's study states most cities were satisfied with their ordinances. Major complaints and infractions are rare, and the adoption of chicken ordinances have been looked upon positively. Likely due to the minimal number of complaints, enforcement has not been a major problem in any of the cities we've surveyed. If all chaos ensues, we fully expect the council to return to the table in 1 year's time and substantially limit or prohibit backyard chickens. But I don't think that will happen, because to date, neither city staff nor us have heard of any kind of movement, not to mention a single city that has set apart repealing chicken ordinances in the city that have had them. The only change we have seen in cities like Seattle is increasing the number of chickens they allow. We have offered to work with staff on informational brochures, host workshops and tours of code-approved coops, screen applicants and follow up with them one-on-one to ensure they're prepared. They're prepared and translate any and all materials into Spanish. I know that staff are concerned that these aren't bindings offers, but you might have noticed we aren't going away. And over the course of the last 8 months, we've only grown in numbers. So please take advantage of what we have to offer.
Thank you.
My name is Deb Crockett, and I live at 1014 Emerson Street. And I guess, first of all, I want to just ask with a show of hands, who's here in support of the chicken ordinance tonight? Okay. So you have before you a group of citizens who care about the city, who are informed and active, who want the right to raise food on their private land in ways that are respectful of their neighbors as well. Along the journey, they've listened carefully and respectfully and compromised on every aspect of this ordinance to create rules that answer the concerns of city staff and other residents. Tonight, in brief, we've repudiated any concerns that have been raised by other residents or organizations from the city, with evidence from poultry experts, public policy studies, other communities, farmers, and our own firsthand experience with chickens. If opposing residents or other groups have similar evidence from reputable sources, not speculation or fear, that challenges this research, then we ask people to bring that forward now so that we have a chance for an informed, evidence-based conversation. Is there any new evidence that someone wishes to bring forth in opposition of the ordinance?
No, that would be my call.
That would be your call. Okay.
And I'm going to get it.
Well, if that's all, then I ask the councilors to make their decision based on the evidence provided to them in the last 8 months of this process, which, as of 13 days ago, led 5 of you to believe this was a smart, positive policy change worth taking a chance on in Beloit. Thank you.
Do we have any other citizens wishing to come forward under citizens' participation? Please state your name and address.
Mike Zorl, 1756 Carlisle. September is National Chicken Month, and I'm here to support that tasty bird. Section 7.2448D is still one of my concerns. I brought it up 2 weeks ago. It states a building official may enter the rear yard of a residential zoning lot at any reasonable time to determine if a property is in compliance with the provisions of this section. I'll point out that section 7.07 in the Municipal Code, Part 2, states special inspection warrant. The provisions of this code shall not be construed to require a person to permit an inspection without consent. If a person refuses to permit inspection, The building official may apply to a court for a warrant to inspect pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 66.0119. I suggest that something similar like that is added to this chicken ordinance to protect the property rights of not only the people that want chickens, but also the rights of the people that don't want chickens. And I'd also like to speak on this ordinance from the perspective of a landlord. As a landlord, I want to attract the best tenants and the most tenants. The way the law is now, I'm unable to compete for tenants wanting to keep chickens. Passing the chicken ordinance will make my business more competitive and Beloit more competitive. It's good for our economy, it's good for jobs. Please, the people of Beloit are struggling enough. Don't let more red tape get in the way of fixing Beloit's unemployment. And lastly, I ask that you counselors don't mark yourselves as somebody that's in favor of discrimination. Please don't vote against this chicken ordinance while at the same time supporting a park for dogs. Shouldn't people that want chickens and keep dogs be treated equally? To do anything other would be in favor of discrimination. Thanks.
Any other individuals wishing to come forward and speak under citizens' participation? Make a final call. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak under citizens' participation? Hearing none, I will close the citizens' participation and move forward to the consent agenda, number 6. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point of the agenda. Does anybody wish to have something removed?
Approval of the consent agenda, Mr. President.
I would like an item removed before you so hastily.
Okay, so which item?
Thank you. Item K, please, Mr. President. Okay.
Okay. So the item, as amended, the consent agenda consists of items 6A through 6J, and we have does your motion and second still stand, gentlemen? Yeah. Okay, so motion by Van de Bogart, second by Lukey. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries 7-0. Staff presentation for item 6K.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a request to allow me, as city manager, to make an application to the State Department of Natural Resources for what's called an urban forestry grant. As you will see, the amount of the request is a grant for $25,000. It'll be a 50% grant requiring a 50% match. Much of that will be what we refer to as a soft match, applying salaries and other in-house costs that are going to be used to fight the emerald ash borer. Some of it may actually be cash outlay that we already have in the budget, anticipating the cost of dealing with this problem. As you know, the emerald ash borer has been positively identified in 2 locations in Rock County now, so we do know that it is in our midst. The city has a plan in place. We've had that, I guess, about 3 years now. We've been prepared. We're meeting regularly with the city of Janesville and working collaboratively with them to put together a joint and shared response to maximize our effectiveness. We're looking at a number of things, from public education to treating of the trees, and also preparing for significant removal of trees over the next 4 to 5 years, as has been the experience, unfortunately, of other communities that have had to deal with this pest. So all that planning and activity is currently underway. The grant funds will help us both with the public education piece and also with treating of the trees. There is a chemical process that can be used to treat for this that keeps the borer from infecting the ash trees. It's fairly expensive. We will certainly not be able to do all the trees on public properties in the city, but we have our engineering staff and forestry staff working now trying to map all these out on our GIS system so we can get a good feel for where we have high-quality trees, attractive trees, ones that we really want to save, and obviously we'll try to stretch our budget as far as we can to protect as many as possible, and this grant would be helpful to that end.
Thank you, City Manager. Any counselors have questions or comments? Okay. Councilor Forrest.
And I'm sorry I don't have these questions ahead of time because I wasn't aware that that was a component of the mitigation plan. Upstairs in agenda review was the first time I heard about a chemical treatment of the trees, and I want a lot more information about that before I decide further. I don't know how timely this grant proposal is, if it's something that I can get my questions answered about it. The staff report says nothing about chemical applications, so, and I don't know anything about this chemical.
I think, the city manager,
I'm not sure what you think this is, but this is an over-the-counter product that's currently available at Ace Hardware, Menards, and other regular retail outlets. It is safe. It affects a pest only. It's a product that is sucked up in through the root structure, primarily in the spring. And I'm not sure what you think this is or what you think is going to happen by it, but
What is it?
I don't know the technical name. Chris, do you, is Chris Walsh here tonight? Do you know the technical name? You want to come on up to the podium if you can add some clarity to what the product is?
please.
We'd be happy not to treat if that's council's decision, but there's thousands of trees.
All right, I
that are
don't
gonna
have the
to be figured
technical
out.
name. I can get it for you, and there is a very timeliness. We either get the money or we don't by October 1.
Is it possible that we could apply for the grant and receive more information about
We actually would be doing that. We haven't chosen which method to mitigate. I think what Larry was alluding to was there are chemicals out there. There are a host of things that we could do, but we just started doing the research with the city of Janesville. The wash tends to be probably the least invasive that we have found, but we haven't said for sure that's what we're doing. We're gathering costs, but they have a deadline of October 1.
And this matter will be coming up more, as I indicated earlier, during the budget preparation process. We're also going to have to talk about this, probably make some adjustments to the budget depending on which way you go. If we don't treat, then we're anticipating a pretty significant kill-off over the next 4 to 5 years. We'll have somewhere north of 1,000 trees.
About 2,100 terrace trees.
2,100 terrace trees alone, plus trees in the parks and the cemeteries, and this doesn't count private property trees. So there's a lot of them out there in private property as well. And obviously, it would seem to be prudent to try to save as many of those as is reasonable.
I would like to point out my own research on this is that this isn't invasive and there is no natural control vector for this particular insect. And so anything we do is going to be somewhat unnatural. As unpleasant as I find it, I think that everything that I've read in the last year indicates that the soak is probably the most effective method of saving those trees. But that's all I have to say on that. Any other questions?
Clarify then, could I receive more information as you move closer to looking at what you're going to choose as your mitigation strategies?
Sure, that will be actually part of the plan, the Emerald Ash plan, so maybe Larry, you want to share it with the whole council?
Yeah, we'll bring that up. We'll do a presentation on it as soon as we get the mitigation plan completed. We're also going to be talking more about this again during the budget preparation process. We may have to make some other amendments to the budget before it's finalized in November. So there'll be plenty of opportunity to talk about this. The application wouldn't even be applied till the first opportunity would be the spring, very late winter, spring of 2013. So it's about 6 months out, 8 months out before we would even be doing the first application.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Are there any other council questions or comments? Seeing none, do we have a move?
Move 6A, or 6A. Second.
Okay, moved by Van de Bogart, second by Levy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes 7-0. Now for the main event. Item number 7, ordinances.
A proposed ordinance to amend Section 7.243 Sub 3 and to create Section 7.244 of the Property Maintenance Code, Chapter 7 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit, and to amend Sections 6.2.8 and 6.3.3 Sub B Sub 1 and Table 6.1-1, and to create Section 8.300 Sub M Sub 5 of the Zoning Code, Chapter 19 of the Code of General Ordinances for the City of Beloit relating to the keeping of chickens. This is a second reading, and the Plan Commission did recommend denial 4-1.
Mrs. Christensen.
A draft ordinance allowing backyard chickens was prepared by staff after a couple of workshops and presented to the Plan Commission on August 22nd. A public hearing was held on the proposed ordinance, and Plan Commission recommended denial of the ordinance with a vote of 4-1. On September 4th, a public hearing was held before the City Council, and the City Council proposed 3 changes, which are included in the proposed ordinance on your agenda for action this evening. Section 7.2447B was modified to require the property owner's signature to be notarized on the application for the annual chicken permit. Section 7.2447D was created. It establishes the permit year as January 1 to December 31st. It indicates that we will not accept applications until the first business day in January, and that we will accept applications on a first-come, first-served basis. And it also limits the number of permits to 30 the first year of the ordinance. However, in future years, that number of permits would be unlimited, which I think the public was a little concerned about that section. The proposed ordinance before you allows 4 hens on any residential zoning lot with 1 single-family residence. It also allows a coop, which cannot exceed 24 square feet in area, and a chicken run, which cannot exceed 40 square feet in area or 1% of the rear yard area, whichever is greater. However, in no case may the chicken run exceed 100 square feet in area. Other requirements include that the chickens may not roam around a yard even if it is fenced, that a coop and chicken run may not be located in the front, interior side, or street side yard of a lot, that it must be set back at least 10 feet from the house, 10 feet from the property lines unless the lot is adjacent to an alley, in which case that setback is reduced to 3, and then it must be set back at least 20 feet from any neighboring buildings. Roosters and slaughtering of chickens are prohibited. An annual permit is required before residents may keep chickens and/or construct the coop and/or the chicken run, and the permit process, including the review of applications, site drawings, and inspections, would be administered by the Planning and Building Services Division. And then violations are addressed through a normal process, and then there's a section that says applicants with more than 2 convictions in a year would be ineligible to renew their permit. Staff has recommended denial, and there's a memo in your packet which outlines the concerns. Our major concern is staffing. Unlike other larger cities which allow backyard chickens, we do not have an animal control department or staff designated just to perform that function. If there are issues with loose or abandoned chickens, as have occurred in larger cities, our Humane Society will not accept them. And we really don't have a budget to deal with any costs affiliated with that. We also do not have a health officer. The ordinance would be informed by the Community Development Department and the Police Department, both of which have had staff cuts in the last few years. So far this year, the Community Development Department has performed 5,461 property maintenance inspections and reviewed 4,605 applications. This ordinance would simply divert our scarce staff resources from this current activities to enforcing the chicken ordinance, or we'd have to pick and choose which is which. And that's where our concern comes in. It's just that we've got a full plate right now. Although we've heard that the Madison zoning officer has had no issues with chickens, zoning is not the department that handles code enforcement actions. My staff has spoken with the Madison code enforcement, and they tell a different story from what the zoning officer said, and those issues were identified in the memo, so I will not go over them. And even if a situation doesn't result in a ticket being issued, working with residents to resolve neighbor disputes and educating residents on the ordinance and the process all takes time and resources. And that's where we're coming from on this perspective. And as some of the Plan Commissioners indicated at the Plan Commission meeting, they just said now is not the time for the ordinance. They thanked the residents for being involved and bringing this forward and working very, very hard on this, but they felt it wasn't time, and that's where staff's coming from this perspective. And the proposed ordinance is on your agenda for action this evening, and the ordinance that's in the packet does include those 3 changes, and we also did include the memo from the proponents from the second workshop so that you had all that information as well, and we included the letters that I think were handed out at one of your meetings indicating support from the farmer and the others so that you have a complete picture in your packet. And Plan Commission did vote for denial 4-1. And from what I recall, since I know I always get asked this question, the reason why was just that they felt now was not the time to bring this forward. and it's been a while, so I know that Councilor Spreitzer, Kincaid, and Van de Bogart were there, so what I don't remember, I'm sure they can fill you in on too.
Thank you. All right, I think we need to go ahead and begin initializing with a motion and a second.
Motion for approval.
By Lukey, second by DeForest. Since I'm sure every one of us is going to have something to say, we'll go ahead and start with you, Councilor DeForest.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. I guess this time I will read a statement. Last time I didn't, but this time I will. And there's one particular thing I like to speak to. I have received pressure to consider the fact that many so-called prominent, and I use that term in quotation marks, so-called prominent members of Beloit have expressed concern about this ordinance. This reference has been thrown around many times over the past month, and I wish to publicly denounce it. I'm here to represent all of Beloit's residents. The concerns of a so-called prominent resident, whatever that's supposed to be or mean, carries no more weight for me than any other resident. Related to that, I wish I knew what evidence the Greater Beloit Economic Development Corp. And the Chamber of Commerce was looking at to reach the conclusion that this ordinance would negatively affect our local employment and lead to the significant decline of the quality of our neighborhoods. I'd like to see the evidence. I have not seen any. None has been forthcoming. I've stated before, and I will state again, to base a decision to not pass an ordinance on the logic of potential assumed misuse and behavior violations is not sound. And if we truly have such heightened concern that the keeping of 4 hens could be so disruptive to neighborhoods that we would strike this ordinance down, then we should look very closely at the elimination of the keeping of dogs in our neighborhoods next. The noise nuisance and danger that dogs present is significantly greater than any hen. I will base my decision on reasonable common sense, not fear or pressure from so-called prominent community members. Thank you.
Councilor Lukey.
I was not going to read something, but I've got a few things here I'll read. I want the people of Beloit to know that we've vetted this over the last 6 to 8 months. And outside, there have been a few, maybe one in particular, who has been there the whole time, apart from the counselors. So we've been privy to reports from other cities and information over the last 6 to 8 months. We spent a lot of time on this. Recently, other people have come forward who are primarily against it, who I wish were there 8 months ago learning these facts and figures. My first question was, I don't want some rooster waking me up at 4 in the morning. The answer was, no roosters are allowed. Okay, that took care of that. We're going to have permits. We're going to have fines for those who don't follow the rules. We're going to have coops. We're going to have runs. They're going to stay in the backyard. The apartments aren't going to have them unless a landlord signs off. So I, as a landlord, if I had a good tenant, I trusted him or her, I may allow it, but it depends on me as the landlord. 30 permits allowed. 65% of the cities in this country allow for chickens. Wisconsin, some of the cities in Wisconsin, and I don't think some of these cities are dumpy cities, Fort Atkinson, Madison, Neenah, New Berlin, Sheboygan. We just got a letter, I think it was from the mayor of Duluth, Minnesota, who population about 83,000, and he stated that they've had fewer problems since they enacted the ordinance than prior to the ordinance. He said, it's been great for us in Duluth. Other major cities throughout the country, and I'm getting far away now, but Portland, Boise, Denver, Seattle, Fort Collins, none of these cities are falling apart, I don't think. I don't think Beloit has an inferiority complex anymore. I'm very proud of our city. Look around this city, these 2 beautiful bridges that connect. A world-class college, the Yale of the Midwest, Beloit College, we're very proud of that. High school, unmatched. A school system that's going to be, well, is A plus right now, it'll be triple A pretty soon when we get these buildings in. Top-notch teachers. Very proud to have 3 kids go through the school system. I could go on all day. I'm going to try to keep it to 3 minutes, Chuck. Here. I just want to read something that the Janesville staff was asked to do an investigation in Janesville. This is quoting now. The staff has been asked to look into the matter of whether raising chickens within the city would limit property values. There has been no empirical evidence to suggest a positive or negative impact on home values, and staff is unable to quantify the potential effect chickens would have on adjacent properties. I've heard this, people have said, well, it's going to lower this or that. We don't have any proof. I don't want to get too far off. Let me just conclude by saying I was elected to do what was best for the city of Beloit, for the citizens of Beloit. And that's my role, not to listen to who yells the loudest, who brings the most people, but to do what's best for this city that I'm a sixth-generation Beloiter in, that I love. And I will do that tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Levy.
Dave, that was over 3 minutes, but that's
sorry.
okay, First of all, let me start by, as I've done in the past, thanking the individuals that put a lot of time and effort in there, along with my colleagues on the council. As you've all heard, we've been here 6 to 8 months, and we've looked at everything. And as you know, I was one of the ones that voted against it. Several reasons come to mind is one of the reasons I did go back to work and talk to a couple individuals who actually have chickens now, but they live on a farm. And my question to them was, do you see any harm? Of course, they said no. I said, well, I'm not talking about on a farm. I'm talking about in a residential area. They were kind of concerned about that. They were simply saying chickens seem to do better in an open area, not right next door to individuals. There's a lot of things that you need to consider. They do attract rodents. So as I look at this and try to understand it, I'm asking these questions of people who are in this situation now. 20 years of experience in the food industry. As Kathy Flanagan mentioned earlier, there's what we call an at-risk population, which is the youth, the elderly, and pregnant women. When we handle chicken in the restaurant or in schools, whenever we get through dealing with chicken, we have to sanitize the entire area. The employees have to wash their hands. There's a whole thing, a whole procedure that we have to do versus just putting any more food down there and cooking or prepping where we prep chicken. When we cook chicken, we usually have to use 2 different utensils because of what they call cross-contamination, and I'm sure a lot of people know this. So where am I going with this? My concern is, and I've said it before, I am not concerned about the individuals here this evening. I truly believe that you will do a good job. You're dedicated. You love this process. My concern is with the ones that don't know about it. We give 35 permits, 30 to 35 permits. What about the person who said, I'm not going to get a permit? We see it happen all the time. People do things without a permit. Code enforcement goes out, try to find out what they're doing and correct the problem. But in the meantime, the person without the permit decides to go out and get 4 chickens. Don't know how to care for them. Don't know if they're sick chickens or whatever. They bring them home. Someone plays with them. It's a contagious chicken. Now that disease is spreading because they didn't know. What happens if we do get sick chickens or contagious chickens and we throw them away, we throw them in the trash? DPW comes by and pick them up. The driver doesn't know that they're in the bag. If it's a diseased chicken, that disease is now going home with him or her, and so on and so forth. I keep hearing over and over again that we don't want to make this decision because of fear. I'm not afraid of this. I'm concerned. I don't, as Dave said, I don't make decisions based on fear. I'm concerned. I too represent the entire city of Beloit. My question is, are we representing the majority here or the minority here? One thing about this council that I pride myself on, and it seems as though when tough decisions come forward, we're often saying, what does the majority of the city of Beloit want to do? And sitting here tonight, I am not convinced that this decision is best for the majority of the city. As my colleague, Councilor DeForest said, we don't represent one individual body. We have several, and I'm sure they will witness to it and attest to it. And over the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months, we have had phone calls after phone calls, emails after emails about this situation on both sides. Just to throw a little plug in here, in a few weeks or a month, we're going to be talking about the budget. I hope we have I hope we have this much input when it comes to things like the budget. Not saying that this is not important, but when you're talking about the budget, we very seldom get a phone call. Okay, I just want to throw that out there. I often look at staff. As a city councilor, I sit back and I hear all the time of how we say, we have a wonderful staff. Staff is doing a great job. We appreciate the job staff is doing and going out and getting the information that we need to make a good, sound decision. So in this instance, when staff does what we ask them to do, go out, and they meet over and over again, they get the information. And I said this before, and I'll say it again, because quite honestly, we were hearing all of the wonderful things about having chickens in the backyard. We never heard about any of the concerns. So to get a full balanced picture, we needed staff to go out and say, okay, what are we looking at here? Give me the full picture. Staff goes out and do that. They come back with their recommendation. Now we're not agreeing with what staff is saying. The staff that we say does a great job. The staff that we're saying, they know their department is better than we do because we're not in it every day. The staff that we're saying, they know what they can afford to do and what they know that they afford that they can't do. I don't recall, and maybe it happened before, but I don't recall a time that we've ever asked staff to go out and present their case, make a recommendation after all their hard work, and at the end of the day, we say, thank you, but we're not going to support it. It may have happened. I don't remember. Sitting on this committee, there are several times that when we have alcohol and liquor license revocations, we sit in a room. The committee may say 30-day suspension. Kevin says, let's make it 90. My peers say, Kevin, we need to follow the recommendation of the committee. These are citizens who are giving up their time. They don't get paid for it. They're volunteers. We need to show them that we appreciate what they do. We appreciate their hard work. Why have them there? We're not going to listen to what they say. So I argue back, well, that's just a guide. Every single time we go down this road, every single time that I want to push against what the committee says, there's backlash. We need to support the commission. We need to support the committee. Plan committee comes forward and says, you know what? Now's not the time. We don't see it. We can't afford it. We don't see how it's going to work. We're going to deny it. Staff says we're going to deny it. Council says thank you, but no thank you. This is one time we're not going to listen to you. I'm looking at it again. Does this represent the feeling of the majority, or are we looking at the minority? We often say that we are representing the entire city of Beloit, and we know that sometimes we make decisions, and we know sometimes that the minority group comes forward, but we always say we want to look out for what's important for the entire city. And at this time, I just don't feel that this is representing the majority of the population of the city of Beloit. That's all that I have. 10 minutes? How long is it?
Okay, let's go ahead and get, Jim, you're in the next.
Thank you, Mr. President. Special interest legislation pushed and presented and advocated by intellectually and emotionally committed citizens does not make good public policy if it's bad public policy. It doesn't turn it into something that's good. Much has been made of the 500 or 600 signatures on petitions that were circulated, indicative, supposedly, of broad community support for this concept. First of all, having been a veteran of the council with other petitions that have been presented, I know that all the information is not presented when somebody sticks a clipboard in front of you to sign. Say, do you want chickens in the backyard, 4 hens? Oh yeah, okay. No information was presented, I'm sure, about the lack of capacity to enforce it with health department officials or officers. No information was presented about the potential risks or costs. It's simply a good idea, and somebody signs it. I would point out that in a generation or two ago, when we had a great deal of unrest going on with the Vietnam War, somebody did a survey, and they got thousands of Americans to sign petitions to repeal the Bill of Rights. It's somewhat weighty. It indicates there is some support, but along with Councilor Levy, I do not see a groundswell of support from our citizenry for this concept. A great deal has been made of other communities, this community, that community, in Wisconsin, elsewhere. First of all, they're not the city of Beloit. They don't have our demographics, they don't have our location, they don't have our consistently high unemployment, they don't have our property valuation. They may have other items in their ordinance. Delavan, for example, just passed their ordinance, but they require 51% of the contiguous property owners to sign off on the concept of chickens. Englewood, Colorado has chickens, but again, they have a requirement that contiguous property owners agree to it. So there are all kinds of shifting ordinances that we may or may not be aware of. I am concerned, as is Councilor Levy, about the tendency, apparently, by my fellow councilors to not follow or listen to staff recommendations. We are of different work situations. We have different employment. We have different specialties, different talents. We're elected to try and represent the entire community. We have professional staff, and we pay them to do the ordinances and implement the work. And when they make a recommendation based on their information, based on their concerns, based on their observations, it seems to me we have an obligation to consider it very, very strongly. Likewise, we have a plan commission, which gives of their time and talents and runs these things up a flagpole, if you would, and they make a recommendation against adoption of this ordinance. And we apparently won't follow that. I would suggest that we do. Much has been made of the fact that the Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation and the Chamber of Commerce weigh in at the last minute, whether it's in or out of their purview to do so. I've read the letters. I think that it is. When you talk about promoting quality housing, revitalization of neighborhoods as a foundation for a vibrant and growing community, and the other one, the mission of the Chamber, is to enhance, promote, advocate growing businesses, quality of life. They apparently felt it was appropriate to weigh in on it. I was the council member who's charged with representing and observing the activities of the Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation, and I did bring it to their attention at their last meeting last month, or last week rather. I indicated that there was a 5-2 vote in favor of it. It had been laid over. I explained the pros and cons of the ordinance, and I indicated that if they wanted to take a position, now was the time to do so, but that they were informed. That's my job, is to be a liaison between this body and that body. I'm not a voting member. They chose to go forward and accept, or rather draft their letter and take the position. I presented the information, and they asked me what my position was. I told them. I think I did a pretty good job and a pretty fair job of indicating both sides. Their business is their business. They take a position against it. We might want to consider that their interests are economic, their interests are growth of the community, their interests are as broad and as varied as ours are. I don't know that they are prominent or not, but I suppose they think they are. But they certainly have a stake or a dog in the game, if you want to make that reference. It seems to me that A number of people in the community have come to this debate late. Some people may have seen the editorial in the Beloit Daily News on Saturday indicating basically that the editors there came to the issue late and discovered that it was coming forward, and they took a position against it. I'd considered strongly trying to make the ordinance, in my view, better this evening by making 3 motions to amend it. The first was to suggest and require that people go through a conditional use permit process to get a license. The second was to suggest that either 100% of the neighbors or 50% of the neighbors or 51% sign off on someone who wanted to have chickens. And the last one was to have a suggestion that I'd made earlier in the process, a sunset provision, which said this ends in 4 years unless there's an affirmative vote in 3 years, or you could pick the number of years, that doesn't matter, unless there's an affirmative vote by the council to continue it. It then struck me that the issue isn't the permit issue. It isn't the good people here that are pushing the ordinance. As Councilor Levy has indicated, you're not the problem. You'll be fine. The problem, in my view, is the large number of individuals that will say, hey, I'm not a rich, wealthy person. I can't afford $200 for a chicken coop and a chicken run, but my kids want chickens. I want fresh eggs. I want to do this. They're not going to be limited to the permit process. They're going to go out and get 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 or whatever mail-order chickens. They're going to get started into this process, and they're going to quickly find that it isn't as easy and isn't as clean or neat or whatever as they thought. And they're not going to take the chickens out to Twin City Packing and have them slaughtered appropriately. They're going to be in the trash. Their feces and straw are going to be mixed in with the regular garbage. They're not going to follow the rules. And whether it's a fear, whether it's a concern, I think it's going to be a big, big financial impact on the city to try and rein this unregulated area in. I think by passing this ordinance, we send a green light to the top end of the people who are here that this is okay. But the rest of the folks are going to go ahead and do it, and they will sink the ordinance. This has already divided our community. It's divided our council. It's going to pit neighbor against neighbor, and we have nobody down at City Hall to go out and enforce this thing. One of my counselors indicated to me in one of our conversations about this that when you're going to make a big change like this, you need 2 things, one of 2 things. You need to have either a broad consensus to do it, which I don't think we have. We have a consensus by these good people who've pushed it. Or you have to have an enforcement capacity, which we don't have. So on both those items, no broad consensus, no enforcement capacity, I think this is not good public policy and should be denied. Taking nothing away from the good people that have presented it, I just don't think it's good public policy. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Spitzer.
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank the residents who brought this forward for your patience and respectful dialogue this entire time. Second, I want to thank the residents and organizations who've been opposed to this. I think that everyone who's spoken on this issue has done so with Beloit's best interests at heart, and I truly believe that, so everybody's voices have been valuable. Obviously, we're not going to make everybody happy with our decision tonight, but I think it's important that everybody's motives, I think, have been in the right place, and we've obviously reached different conclusions. I'm supporting this for 2 reasons, as I did last week. First, because I do believe that there is more support in this community than opposition, based on the people that I've heard from by phone and email and Facebook, as well as the people who've come to meetings, come to our workshops, and spoken out. I think there have been a number of opportunities for the public to weigh in, and I have heard from more people who've been supportive. Although certainly there's a well-organized group who's come in support, I think that it would be natural for people who are opposed to speak up. It's the kind of thing that I honestly expected there would be more opposition to than we've seen when this first came forward. So I really do believe that most people don't have a problem with this. But secondly, I personally believe, based on the evidence that we've heard, based on the evidence that we've discussed together, based on my own research as well, that this is in the best interests of the city of Beloit. I wouldn't vote for this just because it has more support. I also believe that it's the best thing to do for all of the reasons that we've heard. I wanted to, it's hard to weigh all of the evidence and speculation. There are some things, as we know, like property values that we just don't have an answer for. So the thing that it really boils down to for me is the fact that so many other places have done this without apparent calamity. And I think that's really what gives me the reassurance to say that we can do it too. I realize that everybody has different circumstances, different specific rules, different staff mechanisms. Earlier, I forget who referenced the, I think it was Dave, the city of Duluth. So I was the one who actually contacted the city of Duluth to find out what their experience was. I just wanted to note what was in that letter. I won't read it all, but I wanted to summarize. This is from the City of Duluth Animal Control lead worker and was also echoed by the mayor. I realize we don't have animal control, but I think that's not the point. What they say, regardless of which staff are handling it, is that it takes very little staff time to oversee the folks permitted to own chickens. We only respond to complaints, and since there are none, our job is easy. We spent more time on enforcement related to chicken keeping when it was not allowed in the city than we do now. Also, there is an organized community group of chicken keepers. They provide support and guidance for newbies and apply peer pressure when needed to make sure everyone is towing the line. None of those people want to see the ordinance put in jeopardy by someone else's irresponsibility. So I say yay to keeping chicken permits. Her name is Carrie Lane, if anybody wants to know. And she said I could share that. So that ultimately gives me comfort. Finally, I think if we do this, we can repeal it if there are problems, but clearly we also have volunteers who can help make this work. I hope that we take advantage of them to help educate the community and take the burdens off of our staff time. Finally, if we support this tonight, and I believe we're going to, I think we need to come together as a community and try to work together to make this a success. Obviously, there have been disagreements, some of them very sharp disagreements, but we're all neighbors, and I think it's important that we act that way, that we come together and try to move forward and get along, mend fences where they need to be mended, and work to try to make this work, because I think that it can, I think that it will, and I urge my colleagues to support it for that reason.
Councilor Kincaid.
Is there 3 minutes left?
Oh, as many minutes as you need.
This will be short. When I was in the first debate running for office, the chicken thing was just getting started. I threw out a one-liner, I promise every chicken in every pot. And then someone told me, I don't really remember it, that I said anyone who voted against it would be a Scrooge. I really don't remember saying that. But as the months and weeks and days and weekends and long nights and meetings progressed, I did find that this is more complicated than it appeared at first. I did find myself saying and thinking, well, I really need to see the ordinance before I can vote. I want to vote for it, but I need to see the ordinance. The process, to me, has worked. We've had this agony, very little ecstasy, coming up with an ordinance that can work, and that doesn't in any way disrespect or not acknowledge the staff and what they've put into it, and also the pressures that may arise out of getting it initially off the ground and managed. So I'm going to vote for this. I think it's a good ordinance. I think it's something that's going to be good for Beloit. I'm not at all concerned about property values as a consequence of chickens. We have other things that we may say, well, other things are more of a problem than good tenders of backyard chickens.
All right. Do you have anything new to add to this, Councilor DeForest?
I'd like to address some comments that were made by my colleagues. I guess I just want to share, for me, all decisions are not just made by a simple majority. Decisions do not, at least when I approach decisions, they have different standards by which I decide how I will vote on them. And so I would like to just emphasize that I don't make all decisions just based on what a simple majority says. I certainly understand that there are times when minority rights and interests are at stake, and that those need to be balanced with the potential impact on the majority. And so there are times where I have decided to vote with the minority because I felt it was the right thing to do, and when I weighed out the potential impact on the majority, it did not concern me, and such is the case in this instance. I also would like to clarify that I, for one, can strongly attest that I have voted against commission and committees and staff recommendations. I don't know where my colleagues been for the last 5 years, but I certainly have done that. I certainly respect the work that the commissions and committees and the staff does, but ultimately it's my job to weigh all of the factors involved in making a decision that I think is best in the best interest of the city, and I have not been afraid to do that, and I will continue to do that. So I just wanted to make sure that I clarify that, because there are instances where a commission or committee's recommendation, I feel, impacts the public interest in a way that I cannot ignore. Otherwise, why bother having a city council? So I would just like to make those 2 points of clarification. Thank you.
Councilor Lukey.
Just a quick clarification. I too, I've been on in the last number of years, maybe 5 or 6 commissions and boards, and I could never imagine anybody not voting for what we as a group of concerned citizens brought forth. I would say now in 99.9% of the cases that the council will affirm it. In this case, though, as I said before, maybe I didn't say it strong enough, I feel based on the last 6 to 8 months of research, we had more information, more data, more input than anybody else. We had more than the Plan Commission, I'll say that. And they did, I'm sure, a good job, a conscientious job. I think we had the information. Secondly, I want to scold my fellow councilor, Mr. Vandy Bogart. He applauded the people that are here and that have been here, but I think he demeaned others when he said a large number of these other people out there. I'm more positive and optimistic. I don't see a large group out there that is going to abuse this. And I wish we wouldn't scare people like that. If there are people, and there'll be some people who abuse it, as they abuse dog licenses and other licenses, hopefully they will be fined and taken care of through this. So I just wanted to bring forth those 2 points. Thank you.
Councilor Levy.
And since we're clarifying things, let me just clarify a couple of things too, to my colleague, Councilor DeForest. Where have I been the last few years? I've been right here. Okay, and when I made those comments, I made them because based on what I recall, and how we relate to staff, and how decisions that staff brings forward and what we voted against staff. So when I said that we usually support what staff brings forward, I don't think I was stretching the truth there a little bit, because we have. And as far as the simple majority, I think there's times that we all step out on that ledge and look at what the minority is bringing forward. But 9 times out of 10, and I believe that's what I said, that 9 times out of 10, we usually go with what's best for the majority of the city. So I can just speak personally of how it's been towards me when I say, let's go against the committee or the commission. 9 times out of 10, it's being said, we need to follow what they say. So since we're clarifying things, I just want to make sure that that point is clarified as well. Thank you.
All right. Councilor Levy, I would point out that when you were going after, harsher sanctions at the ABLCC, I was right there with you.
So was I. Not all the time, but I digress.
All right. Okay. And Councilor Van de Bogart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't certainly wish to demean any Beloiters, but I do want to point out that there will be, in my view, a significant number who do not follow the rules for whatever reason, and who do not have the economic wherewithal to pay a money penalty. And we can impose a money penalty, but we will not be able to collect it. And unless we're willing to spend $50 a day or whatever it costs these days to keep somebody in the county jail, we have no enforcement leverage at all. I don't think it's anything other than being realistic when I say that stuff. And to the other point, in terms of the volume of individuals or groups that are opposed to this, I'll reiterate, the staff people, the police, the fire, the landlords, Greater Beloit Economic Development, Chamber of Commerce, Beloit Daily News. I probably missed a couple. To me, that's the majority that don't think this is a good idea.
All right. Well, I think it's time for me to weigh in on this. I'd like to point out that this has been a challenging process. Obviously, towards the end, it was full of high emotion for what, after all, at the end of the day, is an exceedingly minor issue. We expended too much vitriol, we expended too much energy, we expended too many resources on this issue. But so, like many things, it develops a life of its own after a while. You know, I have an issue with some of the things I've heard people say, that there was a conventional wisdom that this would just go away if we just thought correctly. And I would think that we are a diverse group of people, are highly educated, that we come at this from different viewpoints. And so it's just not, I think it's a problem for me to think that someone would think that we would just all, by general agreement, think that this ordinance, or these people in this ordinance and this concept would have gone away. I know it's terrible. Most people don't want to think that anyone on this board has ever lived anywhere else. But I'm going to freely say that I've lived in 3 other major communities over extended periods of time. Beloit is the first place that I've ever lived that did not permit chickens. In any of those places, I think in 30-some-odd years, I maybe saw 4 or 5 coops. So that's the nature of the issue, is that it's not an issue. It's a small thing. And I would like to point out to some of those people who think that we should have just made this go away, was that why would I think Beloit would fail at keeping chickens when every other community that I've ever lived in has succeeded? I think you're better than that. I think you've got more energy. I think you've got more verve. I think you've got more commitment to your future. So I'm appalled by even that thought. And so I have to express my emotions now. It's been full of bad arguments all around. We've had almost no hard data. I have rigorous intellectual requirements for an argument that comes before me, and there's been very, very little of that on both sides. I will say that there are a few items that are good arguments. There have been a few things that do present good, strong basis of hard data. But those have to be centered around the concepts of calculated risk. One of the things that we know is that we've got a large number of people that want to do this, that will probably do it well. There are other communities that do it well. For those people who do it, they can honestly say that it's an enriching thing for them. Beyond that, it's difficult for me to quantify. The arguments against it is that if this goes badly, we would have a paucity of resources, that any resources we have to commit towards enforcement are resources that will be taken away from something else. Those are the hard arguments. Those are the arguments that distill it down for me. In all of this 8 months, I've been on the razor's edge. Do I go with my convictions or do I go with my concerns? Do I believe we have the ability to do this? As a community, I've been back and forth with it many, many times. But I think at the end of this, I have to look at what the risks truly are. The risks are very low. By all of the calculations of the number of permits and the permit holding communities, it seems that we would probably end up at an equilibrium point of anywhere from 15 to 20. That would be my guess, and I have to go on just the basis of what other communities would say. 15 or 20 coops in, even up to 30 in a city of 37,000 people, is that very many at all? I know Councilor Van de Bogart shares a concern that I have that there's always scofflaws wherever we go. And there are. There's been scofflaws in St. Joseph, Missouri. There were scofflaws in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I'm sure there were a few in Niederoberstein, Germany, where I lived. And there are here. But do I really think that I am going to restrict other people's lives based on a few scofflaws? I hope that I'm not that cynical. But in a few moments, we're going to make a decision. And I have to decide personally on this razor's edge in the next few moments whether I'm going to vote with my convictions that this can be done and with my hopes that Beloit is a greater community than that, or my concerns that if it goes badly, we're going to have to come back with our tail between our legs. You know, I've often thought, and I've seesawed back and forth, and the other people that are around me and have been listening to me I've never revealed my whole mind to them. The fact that my convictions say this works and my fears say it doesn't. But I will reveal my entire mind to everyone today, is that that's how close it's been on the edge. My wife left me with one final thing before she left. After she did the chicken dance, she said, Charles, she said, Chuck, I want you to vote with your convictions. I want you to vote with your heart. I want you to vote with what you believe. Don't vote with your fear. So I'm going to see if I can take my wife's advice. And that is all I've got to say on this. But besides, I will go ahead and speak to some other things that I think need to be said. Is that there's been a lot of vilification of people that are good people in this room, good people in this community, on both sides. Staff, they're some of the finest professionals I've ever worked with. In 10 years of military service, I would stack them up with their professionalism against any unit that I ever served in, any company that I ever served with. And I know that they didn't like this. And I know why. And I respect them. I just don't know if that respect has to end up with agreeing them with every time. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything else that they'd like to say? All right, we're going to call the question. It's going to be a roll call vote, and I will let the clerk decide from which side, and I will be the last.
Councillor DeForest?
Aye.
Councillor Van de Bogart?
Nay.
Councillor Kincaid?
Aye.
Councillor Lupke?
Aye.
Councillor Levy?
Nay.
Councillor Spreitzer?
Aye.
Councillor Haynes?
Aye.
And that passes 5-2.
And God help us all. All right. Now, I will say that something I want to make sure that the populace knows, that the citizens of the city of Beloit understand firmly, is that this is an experiment. We are taking a risk. That I believe firmly that this risk is minimal, but we are an experiment here. If this experiment appears to be faltering, then we will come back to the table to discuss this and figure out how to fix it or how to eliminate it. We will give it an adequate amount of time. I trust you will do your utmost to make this work, that you will find buy-in, that you will find resources, and you will make this work. But if it doesn't, we will stand ready to protect the citizens of Beloit. All right. Yeah, I'm falling apart too. Okay. Item number 8. Appointments. The undersigned Charles M. Haynes, duly elected president of the Beloit City Council, subject to confirmation of the Beloit City Council, does hereby appoint the following citizen members to its vacancies in terms indicated below. Said appointments being pursuant to the nominations made by and approved by the Appointment Review Committee at the regular held meetings held September 10th, 2012. Appointments. Alcohol Beverage and Licensing Control Committee, Melissa M. Cronin. Board of Review, Vincent Borgogni. Business Improvement District, Tiffany Warren. For a term, I suppose I should be reading all who they're replacing too, but we don't have to. Also on the Business Improvement District, Renee Kellogg. Parks, Recreation, Conservation Advisory Commission, incumbent Roger Christensen, incumbent Steve Ferger, incumbent Carol Mankiewicz, and Mark Smullen. Traffic Review Committee, incumbent Jason Dowd. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Levy, seconded by Lupke. Okay.
Okay, John.
Exactly. Any, okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes 7-0. I'd like to please announce the following vacancies. The Alcohol Beverage Licensing Control Committee, 1 vacancy for resident. Appointment and Review Committee, 1 vacancy for resident. Board of Appeals, 2 vacancies for alternate for residents. Board of Ethics, 1 vacancy for former city council, 1 vacancy for resident. Community Development Authority, 1 vacancy for resident. Disabled Parking Enforcement Assistance Council, 2 vacancies for residents with disabled plates. Equal Opportunity and Human Relations Commission, 1 vacancy for president. Municipal Golf Committee, 1 vacancy for youth representative. Municipal Library Board, 2 vacancies for residents of Beloit or towns adjacent to the city. Park and Recreation and Conservation Advisory Commission, 1 vacancy for youth. Traffic Review Committee, 2 vacancies for residents. If you have any interest in these items, please contact the city clerk for an application. Item 9, councilors' activities and upcoming events. Councilor Van de Bogart.
Been hanging out at the chicken buffet for a couple of weeks. That's it.
Okay. I think we're good. I think we can do it. Councilor Luke.
Just very briefly, what an honor it was to be at the dedication of the new bridge. I just stood there in the sun and the beautiful day with, I think, maybe 300 other Beloiters, and it was just a beautiful, magnificent day with a lot of pride in Beloit, and just it makes you doubly proud to be a member of this community. Just that says it all. Thank you.
Councilor Levy.
Just a couple things. I want to once again thank my colleagues and staff and citizens, and especially the group here. As we keep saying, we've been through this for 6 to 8 months. I think I just want to thank everybody for their professionalism, and it's important to understand, as we often say, you can disagree without being disagreeable. I mean, I think that the end result, even though we all didn't get what we want, I think it's like the president said, we need to move forward and make it work, give it our best shot, and make sure that everybody holds up to their end of the bargain. But I really want to thank the citizens for getting involved. This is what it's all about. We often sit here and say, if you want something or if you disagree with something, it's important that you come forward and let us know. And this group did that, and I want to thank them for that, and also my colleagues. But once again, just that quick reminder. City Manager Arf, we're talking about a month down the road here. We were talking about the budget. Hopefully we'll see the same dedication as it comes to making a big impact for the city and seeing where your money is going and what we're doing. And I think that process is very important as well, because that's where you actually get to see why we sit here sometime and struggle. And as we say, how are we going to afford to do this? That actually lets you know exactly where we are. So I think that process is very important too. Thank you.
Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. I would like to report on my past activities since our last meeting, which have been varied, but the more formal ones. I was proud to attend the open house for the Beloit Housing Authority Parker Bluff units. One of my goals and priorities as I joined the council many years ago was to see the rehabilitation of all of our public housing units in the city of Beloit. And this marks a culmination of many years of hard work by our staff and by this body to see that to fruition. So I was very excited to attend that. I also participated in the opening and dedication of the Beloit section of the Rock River Water Trail, something that I've been working very closely on personally for the last year, helping to inventory all the portages and dams along the Rock River, and also assist in writing the plan that will be submitted to the National Park Service to attempt to receive federal designation of the Rock River as a national water trail. I'm excited about that because it could mean that we would be able to tap some resources to help improve also not only access to the water, but also water quality measures, improving our water quality. So a labor of love that has been very, very labor intensive, but I'm very excited that we're getting closer to seeing that accomplishment happen. I'm pleased to share that that took the collaboration of municipalities all up and down the Rock River, beginning in the very northern part of Wisconsin, all the way down in Illinois, where it empties into the Mississippi. And to get politicians together at one table, as we know, can be difficult, and was proud to see that that collaboration move forward to the point of producing that plan. I also was able to attend the meet and greet for our new Downtown Beloit Association Executive Director, Shauna Almin, and want to extend my my joy that we were able to promote her to that position. I get excited when we can promote from within, and she certainly was well deserving of that promotion, and I know she'll do an exceptional job in that position, and would like to thank Peter Gabriel and Dominicos for hosting that event. I participated in the Latino diversity training hosted by UW Extension and Youth to Youth recently. It was a half-day training that helped us to consider strategies to help improve our cultural competency with residents who are Latinos in our community. And then finally, I'd like to request volunteers. For the third year, I'm organizing a Rock River Clean Sweep. It's Saturday, the 22nd, from 9 to 11. We're meeting at the Wooten Park launch across from Burger King on 4th Street, and we really need volunteers to help walk along the banks and also to be in boats to help pull garbage out of the river. Last year, we pulled 6 very large garbage bags worth out of the river, and a host of very unusual items. A whole parachute, which I don't want to think about, was maybe attached to the end of that parachute. But I would really appreciate any help on that day. 9 to 11. You just got it. 9 to 11. Please come volunteer. You can just show up. So please help us improve and beautify our Rock River. Thank you very much for allowing me to go on and on. I appreciate it.
Councilor Kincaid.
I, too, was at the bridge opening, and I must confess that I took my bicycle across it the day before it opened. I don't know if I was the first one or not, but I enjoyed the heck out of it. The day after, I walked up one side and down the other, just enjoying every moment. If you haven't crossed that bridge, come to it fast. Thank you.
Councilor Spreitzer.
I also attended the dedication of the Ken Hendricks Memorial Bridge. It's great to have the bridge over Henry Avenue reopened after a year, and it was a wonderful event with a number of good speakers and a beautiful day. I'm especially excited that the bridge is widened and has dedicated pedestrian and bike paths, so I think it will improve safety for everyone. I also attended the ribbon cutting and dedication of the Rock River Water Trail in Beloit at the canoe and kayak launch. I think that's a great project, and hope that we will get the national designation. And I also attended the meet and greet with Shauna Alameen, the new director of the Downtown Beloit Association. So wish her the best in that new role. That's all I have.
I think it was my great honor to speak at the opening of the Ken Hendricks Bridge. It was humbling. The Hendricks family has been very good to Beloit, and it was a great pleasure. I believe that our city manager handled that extremely well, and the other persons who spoke probably did a far better job than I did. But it was humbling and honoring myself in any case. So that's all for councilors' upcoming activities and upcoming events. It is 8:45. How long is? You're going to hold it? Okay, so I think that's perfectly acceptable. So we will skip 10A, the fall yard waste collection. I hate to have had you come here for nothing, Chris, but all right, but thank you very much. So for item 11A,
A resolution establishing a fee for the annual residential chicken permit.
I should have been quicker. I should have got up sooner.
Mrs. Christensen.
Okay, so this is the resolution that would actually establish the fee for January of 13 for the annual residential chicken permit. Application fees are generally set to try to cover some of the expenses related to processing the application. Based on the ordinance that you approved this evening, what is required that we will have to verify, someone will submit a plot plan, we'll have to verify that everything meets the required setbacks. We'll have to verify that they've registered with the Wisconsin Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection. It will also cover the cost for just the materials that go along with any kind of permitting process. And I had a typo in the staff report, which I apologize because I try not to have those. And then the cost to mail the permit, because we will not be able to hand out permits on site. We will have to actually go through the review process. We are proposing a $35 application fee, which I think we've shared for a number of months. And then we have a second, now therefore be it resolved that the fee shall be doubled in the event for that calendar year in the event that a person keeps any chickens or constructs any coop or chicken run without first being issued an annual residential chicken permit. We've done that with COAs and architectural review exceptions a couple of years ago because everybody was doing work and then waiting to be caught, and it did have an impact on those. So we've seen those, people actually showing up and coming in. So, and I think if the group does, what they say they do, and we work with them to educate, we shouldn't have those. We have plenty of time to educate people and make them aware. So I wouldn't think we'd get a lot of those, but I think it's important to have in the fee for this application.
Okay. Anything else? You look pensive.
I have another item after this one, so I'm just
okay.
standing here and waiting.
So,
When can they apply? Starting when?
January 2nd.
They can't apply before that.
That's what I think the ordinance says, so.
That's right. Okay.
We can make applications available. I mean,
Okay.
we'll make them available a couple weeks before.
Okay.
But I think that was written in the language that we wouldn't accept them until January 2nd.
Thank you. Okay.
So.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
So move.
Moved by Spreitzer, second by Kincaid. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Matter passes 7-0. 11B.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to acquire tax delinquent properties from the Rock County Treasurer.
Can I go? In 2003, the City Council adopted a policy which directed the Community Development Department to work with the Rock County Treasurer to identify those properties which were becoming available through the tax foreclosure and could be acquired. Essentially what happens is Rock County acquires them and then we acquire them before the sheriff's sale. Included in your packet was an exhibit which identifies all of the properties that are available for sale through the tax foreclosure sale. The first page shows the ones we're recommending for purchase. We're anticipating that the future use would be demolition and then disposal of the vacant lot to an adjacent property. And then 202 Sherland is on this list, which is the old country store, which is currently now a vacant lot, which in that case we would be looking to purchase that, clean the site up, because it does have some environmental issues, and then that would be purchased with water utility funds. There are a number of properties on the list that you can see that will just go to auction. When we went through our process, what we looked at was trying to let the private sector take the units that we thought could be rehabbed and reused, and focus on essentially blight reduction, where we could. One of the houses, 1005 Keeler, it does have a bankruptcy action on it, so that does delay the tax foreclosure, so Rock County has not taken that property yet. But we do have it on the list because when Rock County does acquire it, we would like to be able to purchase it from Rock County at that time. And on the resolution is that those lists of those particular properties that are listed on that first sheet, and then it also lists the funding source and it's a total of $1,006,387.48. And I did email you out a list PowerPoint, which was in 2 pieces, because our email server will only take so much at a time, with all the photographs. And then I also sent you out a list of what the assessed values were. Those were things Councilor DeForest requested. And I don't know if you noticed, but there were 2 that were on my list that weren't on the final list because I'm assuming property owners paid their taxes on 2 of the properties. But with that, what we're recommending you acquire is on this resolution, which is 1267 Cleveland Street, 1117 Emerson Street, 1005 Keeler Avenue, 318 Moore Street, 956 6th Street, 1414 Yates Avenue, and 202 Sherland Avenue.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Lupke, second by Van de Bogart. Councilor DeForest.
I just wanted to check, Ms. Christensen, we're not foreseeing any problems with being able to cover the cost of remediation for that Sherland Avenue site, is that correct?
I believe we're going to be acquiring some funds for the DNR for that cleanup.
There will be a DNR grant
Yeah.
to cover a good part of the cost for the brownfield cleanup. And then the wastewater utility is going to be adding this to the Sherland Avenue lift station. And they'll be covering the cost again to remove the remaining improvements on the site. And that'll be sodded back. We'll probably plant some trees there. For now, it's just going to be yard space associated with the lift station. If they ever need it for anything, they'll have extra space available.
And it did have a DNR closure letter on it at one time, but it was, basically covered and everything. And then the foundation has started to crack, which has concerned the DNR. So that was one of the issues with that site. Okay. And as Larry had said at agenda review, when they did take the tanks out this last time, it didn't, there wasn't like things spewing out that looked readily there. But obviously they'll do a thorough review and make sure that it's, meets DNR's requirements.
Thank you. And then just to make sure for public information that all of the remaining residences, they'll be demolished, correct?
The ones that we're purchasing, you're
Yes.
talking? Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Spreitzer.
Can you just explain the distinction between in terms of where the money's coming from, the water resources land acquisition and the WPCF road repairs?
Larry, do you know the difference between those, since those are funds that did not come from my department?
Yes, the first 2 accounts, the $43,000 to cover the purchase and the $10,000 to cover the anticipated remediation costs are coming from the Water Pollution Control Fund. That's the wastewater utility. And it has funds available for property acquisition, and we've bought other parcels to add land to our various facilities, which are located around the city. The last account, the $52,000, is coming out of the land acquisition fund that was actually set aside in the capital improvements budget for that purpose. And we've got that designated in here. We really didn't need to reappropriate that. It's already appropriated as part of the 2012 adopted budget, but that's where the resources will be coming from. And as you saw from the staff report, it leaves us about $20,000 to deal with any year-end contingencies, if any expenses come up on these properties or we have to board up a unit or something. The demolition will actually come out of the 2013 land acquisition program, with the exception, of course, of the old service station site, which we talked about earlier. So that will be bid this fall. Contracts will be awarded probably sometime in December, with work starting in January.
And the $20,000 is important because we do have a couple condemnations that are currently going on that we want to try to get the demo done this year.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I'll call the matter. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. Item number 12, do I have a movement to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, Spreitzer and seconded by DeForest. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Ugh.
Buddy?